What's up, everybody? My name is Ben Delosier, and welcome to the All-In Team, 5 Steps to the Peak Performing Workplace. Super excited to have you all here. And what I want you to know right off the bat is that I've packed this presentation with tons of value so that you could be walking away on the other side feeling like you have some powerful tools that you can start implementing today to take your team to that next level and to get them to that place where they're having that much more success in delivering on the results that you're looking for. So I want to welcome you again, and I want to jump right in so we can get to the good stuff for you all. So let's start off by just talking about who's this presentation for. Well, this is for business owners, managers, CEOs, and any other team leaders who have tried everything that they've got and still have a stuck team that's missing deadlines and underperforming. It's for leaders who have a team caught in their own drama that is leading to a total breakdown. This is for folks who are fed up with excuses and need real results from their team now. And finally, this is for leaders who feel their team is plateaued and are ready to shake things up and re-energize their people. If any of this is you, you're in the right place, and we're super excited to have you here. So let's look at what you can expect from this time together. In the next 60 minutes, we're going to be covering how to annihilate cycles of miscommunication and confusion in your team so that you can fast track the results that you need. We're going to look at how to jumpstart the productivity you want while massively decreasing your stress and that of your employees. We're going to be looking at the simple trick to retaining your peak performers and even creating more of them, even if you have folks that are currently on the verge of leaving. We're going to look at how to make accountability and follow through the minimum standard for employees and even get them to the place where they're craving accountability and ready to raise the bar to full-on, energized, and proactive participation in the growth of your company. And we're going to look at how to do all of this without having to run around and put out fires, check in constantly on people to make sure they're following through, or have the same conversations over and over again to keep people on task. And so my promise to you is that by the end of this time together, by the end of this session, you will have a step-by-step strategy to creating a peak performing team that essentially runs itself without missing a deadline. Is that something you all be in for? Awesome. So what I want to do now then is I want to just jump into a few house rules. And these are here just to help you leverage fully the tools that we're going to be engaging here in this session so that you can get the maximum benefit of them. And so here's what I want you to understand. This process I'm going to be walking you through, it's simple, but it's not easy. And the payoff is huge and long lasting if you're willing to see it through. So you need to understand that there is no teamwork silver bullet, and we are not in the business of patching leaky ships. We're in the business of overhauling. We are here to deliver on real solutions and real results. And so that takes work, and we don't want to pretend it doesn't. But what we want to be giving you is a roadmap that makes sure that every ounce of effort that you expend in your business and with your team is paying off in the results that you need, that you're streamlining it and getting there as quickly as possible. So there's work, and we're going to give you the tools here that's going to help you get there as quickly as possible and to do it in a way where there's staying power, where you don't have to worry down the road about having to do this all over again because it didn't stick the first time around. And so what that means though is if you can't show up with 100% commitment to doing the work and to do something different than you've ever done before, I cannot help you and these tools cannot help you. Your success is completely up to you. And if you're willing to show up with that, this system is going to pay off for you in massive ways and you're going to get amazing results. And that's why we're here today. Sound good to everybody? Great. So what I want to do now is I want to ask you a few questions. And what I want to ask you is, does this sound like you? Are you completely fed up with having the same conversations over and over again without seeing any change in behaviors and patterns in your people? Do you find yourself wishing that your employees would simply act like the adults they are and take responsibility for themselves? Do you feel completely and utterly drained, having your time and energy held hostage by the need to constantly be putting out fires in your workplace? Do you find yourself sitting in meetings, feeling like every minute is time wasted spinning your wheels without getting any traction, no matter how hard you try? Do you have mornings where you pray for just one more minute to sit in the parking lot, knowing that the first step you take into your office means another day of utter exhaustion where everyone expects you to solve their problems? Do you find yourself lying awake at night, constantly replaying over and over in your mind the anxiety of your bottom line and how you're going to get your team to meet it? Do you find yourself desperately trying to hang on to that passion that first brought you to your field, but secretly fear that it's going to slip away through your fingers and you'll lose it forever? And finally, do you feel like no matter what you do, you're going to be stuck here, and that the dynamic of your team is ultimately going to be the death of your business and the failure of your dream? If that's you, I want you to know you are here in the right place. And we are here to get you to the other side. But what you need to understand is, as real as those things are, none of those things are actually the real problem. The real problem is you haven't made what I like to call the shifts. And that's why we're here today, to pull the curtain back on these 5 shifts that have the ability to carry you over to the other side. And here's the power of these shifts. Here's what you can expect. Once you have made these 5 shifts that I'm going to be walking you through during this presentation, you're going to end up having a team that will be firing on all cylinders, meeting deadlines without the office politics or the time-wasting drama. You're going to be able to walk through the doors of your office every day, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride in what you've created, the team that you've brought together, and the rock star results being achieved. You're going to be able to go home each day feeling like your time and your energy was well utilized, being a force of celebration and inspiration within your company, instead of having to have your attention constantly being hijacked by what's not working. You're going to feel the passion for your work come rushing back to you, and in an even bigger way than it ever existed before, as you watch yourself and your team achieve new heights. You're going to feel reassured. You're going to rest assured that your business is thriving, that quality work is producing exceptional results and a strong bottom line, and that this is happening without you always needing to be there to put out the fires. You're going to be able to spend time with your family because you will not need to be constantly checking your phone or answering emails, checking in to make sure that things are running smoothly. You're going to know that they are. You're going to know all of these things because you've created this rock solid foundation, this culture of excellence that works with or without you being there in the office. Is that something you all want to step into? Awesome. So here's what I want to do next then. I wanted to share a quick bit about who I am and where this information came from. So I've spent over the last 10 years working with teams in all different sectors: education, nonprofit, small business, corporate business. And my focus has been on facilitating processes that bring out the highest levels of performance through the creation of a workplace culture that is irresistible, that draws out the very best in its people. So for the last 7 years, I've been working with an established team building and leadership development business and growing that business, growing it to a staff of 25 facilitators that I was supervising, bringing the profitability of the organization up by 70%, and doing all this while retaining all of our core staff over the course of those 7 years, with the exception of 2 folks who left the business because they're moving out of the area for family reasons. Something I'm really particularly proud of. And so earlier this year, I transitioned from running this business back to my passion, which is working with people, working with groups, getting in it with them to facilitate that transformation that gets them to the place of feeling amazing about what they're doing and who they're doing it with. And the way that I do that, I specialize in helping teams have the courageous conversations that allow them to move from their breakdown to their breakthrough. And so what happened was over this time doing this work, I had the opportunity to work with countless teams and with some amazing leaders, VPs of higher education institutions, CEOs of corporate businesses, folks who were the superintendents of school districts, people who were running small nonprofit organizations. And it gave me an opportunity to start pulling apart all these ingredients of what makes up teams. What leads to team success? How did they get there? What are the obstacles and challenges they face along the way? What are those things that cause them to arrive at a total breakdown? And what does it take to bust through that and to get back on track so that people can be delivering on the success that they were showing up for in the first place? But what I want you to understand is that so much of this information comes from my experience of working alongside some of the amazing people that I supervised over the last several years and experiencing some of those incredible successes together, hitting some of those challenge points, having to sit and have some of these difficult conversations, and being in the place where we didn't always get it right every time, where I didn't get it right every time. But the thing is, I didn't ask that of my people, nor did I ask it of myself to get it right every single time. What I asked was for people to show up and to know that I was going to show up and that we would be in it and that we would be in it together and that we were committed to seeing whatever it was through to the other side. And that was our rallying point. That who we were together and what we believed in as an organization, what we were bringing through our work was our rallying point. And so I'm excited to be bringing these 5 shifts to you today and to be sharing with you the tools that I learned. And one of the main reasons for that is one of the most glaring things that I found in working with teams and organizations is that most organizations don't realize they're actually bleeding out their most valuable resources and assets. And that's because they're not leveraging one of the lowest cost, highest benefit, cause and effect relationships in the business world. And that is the one between a vibrant culture fueled by belief and how that ties directly to your deliverables and your bottom line. And so what I want to do right now is I want to share a couple quick numbers with you that demonstrate this point really vividly. So Gallup poll has found consistently over the last several years in a row that engaged workers only constitute about 33% of the national workforce. That means about 3/4 of the workforce are sitting in their roles right now, disengaged and not showing up with the fullness of what they have to offer. And this is critical because Gallup also found that for every $10,000 spent on staff salary, $3,400 is lost to the lack of engagement. That's a third. That's the equivalent of a third of what you were spending on staff salary. It's huge. Disengaged employees are 3.6 times more likely to leave. And this is critical because there have been numerous studies about staff retention and the cost of replacing somebody. And they've shown that the cost is 30 to 150% of an employee's salary. That means that if you have an employee that you are spending $40,000 on a year, at minimum, it's going to cost you $13,000 to replace that person at minimum. So this is, again, huge. Finally, in a study of 1.4 million employees and 192 organizations across the globe, what was found is that highly engaged workforces are 22% more profitable. It's a number that speaks for itself. So we're seeing here right out of the gate this undeniable link between your organizational culture and your deliverables. And so the bottom line is this. There are 5 key shifts you must make to create a workplace culture that leverages the full capacity of your team while placing less demand on you so that you can reconnect with your own passion, feel more spaciousness in your role, and feel a tremendous pride in the team you've assembled and the results that they're getting. And what I'm going to be doing here is walking you through all 5 of them in this session. So here we go. Let's dive right into shift number 1, which is know your true north. So I want to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you to be boldly honest in your answer. The success of your business depends on it. Are you confident that your employees believe in you, the senior leadership of your organization, and feel absolutely clear that your daily interactions with them represent what you stand for in your business? If you cannot answer this with a 100% confident yes, you're not leveraging what numerous studies have found to be the number one driver of employee engagement. I want to repeat that. What studies have found to be the number one driver of employee engagement, which is belief in one's employer and what they stand for. In fact, studies have shown that employees who do not know and understand the purpose and values of their employer are only 0.05% likely to be fully engaged, less than a percent. And on the other hand, an employee who knows and understands the organizational values is 51 times more likely to be fully engaged in their work. That's astronomical. So here's what you've been told. You've been told that to create change and to move things forward, what you need to focus on is goal setting and strategies. But what I'm here to tell you is by putting all of your focus on those things, you're actually missing the biggest tool to leveraging the all in of your people and to achieving the results that you need. And what that is belief. So let's take a look at why that is. Well, belief is what makes meaning that matters. And here's how that works. So we have an iceberg here. And what we want to do is consider the things that are above the surface that we can see. So that starts with your results, the things you're actually accomplishing. Those might be your productivity results, your financial results. And those things are all driven by behaviors, the actions that you and your employees actually take to get those things done. But let's take a look at what's below the surface, the things that are actually motivating and driving those very behaviors. So below the surface, we have meaning and we have beliefs. And so to illustrate how this works, let's just take, for example, an employee. And let's say that this is an employee that you've given a task to. And they jump into that task. And as they do, they realize there are resources they're going to need in order to accomplish it. And so now they've reached a choice point. And so let's look at this as 2 different employees. One employee has reached this choice point, and there's a meaning that they overlay onto the situation that they find themselves in. They look at it and they start thinking, oh, I need resources, but they weren't given to me. My boss expects me to do this on my own. Clearly, I can't ask for help. And that meaning can compound. It can turn into things like, if I ask for help, I'm going to be seen as incompetent and needy. And so suddenly this employee is now trying to figure out how to make this happen without the appropriate resources because they're coming out of a place of fear and doubt and anxiety. And the question is, how do you think that impacts the quality of the results that you get from that person? Versus the employee who reaches this choice point and says, you know what? I was hired into this role because I was seen for the talent that I bring and for the belief that I have in what this organization does. And if my supervisor gives me a task, it's because they trust my skill and my ability to identify the resources that I need to get this accomplished. So I know if I go to my supervisor and ask for what I need, they're either going to provide me with that or they're going to help me seek out alternative resources. But either way, I know that I am committed to providing the quality that this organization is committed to. So here's the thing, of those 2 employees, who do you want driving your results? Because it's the belief that creates the meaning that we overlay into every situation. And those are the things that drive the behaviors and ultimately the results that you're getting every time. So if you want to shift the results and the behaviors that you're seeing with your people, you must shift the beliefs first. The results will follow from that place. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting a losing battle every time because the belief is still alive and well, and that linkage has not been broken. So what we're seeing from the previous slide is that you have a critical role as being the one to identify in an explicit way the belief and the meaning that you want people to adopt and carry into your workplace. So, what that means is you are the meaning maker. Because here's the thing, everyone comes to your team with some sort of reason or belief. But the question is it a belief that serves you in your business well? The thing you need to know about us as human beings is we've gotten here as a species because we're hardwired with a default to make meaning that focuses on safety and security. It's the thing that has protected us and allowed us to survive. But what that also means is that the number one cause of conflict, misunderstanding, and inefficiency in an organization is that people do not have a compelling enough meaning to pull them out of that default and to do something different. That is the power of belief. It's the thing that draws us out of that baseline, taking care of our survival, and brings us into that place of thriving. Because we don't go all in for something that we're unsure of or we don't believe in. But when we have a compelling enough belief, that's the thing that excites our creativity, our inspiration, and our commitment to that thing. So this is just like a New Year's resolution to lose weight, where there's access to plenty of strategies out there. And certainly it's easy enough to set a goal. But if that's all it took, every single person who had a New Year's resolution to lose weight would do that instantly. Why doesn't that happen? Well, because it takes more than strategies and goals. It takes compelling belief and something that you can engage every day that gets you up out of your bed into the gym. It's the belief in what it's going to feel like when you've lost that weight, how incredible you're going to feel, and how amazing you're going to feel around other people. How awesome it's going to feel to not have to worry about your health and potentially having a major health issue because of it. These are the things that motivate and drive the behavior of going to the gym and actually making it happen. So the number one thing for you to be leveraging and getting the all-in engagement of your people is giving them meaning that unites them around a common purpose. Otherwise, they will create their own default meaning. So shift number one is, what is that compelling belief that your organization takes a stand for, that is a rallying point that will ignite you and your people in the work that they do and give them purpose that gives them reason to rise to the occasion. So let's look into how culture plays into this and why it is critical to your success. So what you need to know, two things you need to know about workplace culture. One is it always exists, whether by accident or on purpose. And two is it is contagious. And you experience this in countless places. Think about walking into a meeting. Think of those meetings where you've walked in and there's just an energy in the air. It's electric. People are sharing ideas. They're excited. They're riffing off of each other. One person goes and then another person is jumping in and building on the idea. And there's just amazing things happening in there. And then you walk into another meeting and it's dead silence. And somebody asks a question and nobody answers. Everybody's looking down at their feet. Nobody wants to say anything. And if people are saying anything, it's typically about what's not working, all of the excuses. And there's just this air of despondence. But interesting enough, these two energies never coexist in the same meeting. You don't have both of these things happening in those heightened ways. Why is that? Well, it's because of culture. So real quick, let me just define what I mean by culture. I define culture as a pattern of shared beliefs, behaviors, and responses. So how does this work? Well, it's the same as in those meetings where we're riffing off of each other in our day-to-day interactions. And the behaviors that we bring into the workspace create responses in each other that are contagious and build on each other. And the thing is, without a common purpose, those behaviors could take us in any multitude of different directions. So the key is that belief aligns behavior with a specific trajectory. It gives us a guidepost. It's almost like a lighthouse, even in the messiest of times. You don't want to leave a blank slate because the blank slate will get filled in by a default culture. You need to clarify the compelling belief that's going to drive the behaviors that you want so that that's what can start patterning, so that that can become culture. Because then it carries itself. It has a momentum of its own. It starts with you being the person to be that meaning maker. But then it gets carried by others so that you can actually step back and watch it all unfold. The other thing is that belief defines what you stand for and what's non-negotiable. It brings clarity to things. This is what we are all about, and this is not. So again, in order to shift the results, you have to shift the belief that perpetuates the behaviors and pattern that into culture. So let's take a look at a business who's made massive success out of using belief as their core guidepost in all that they do. We're going to take a look at Google. And I want to use Google because it's an organization that most everybody is familiar with. And also you've been on the receiving end of the results of how they implement their belief. So Google, their mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So an interesting thing about Google, though, is it doesn't just end there. They actually have a document entitled The 10 Things That We Know to Be True. And these are their tenets. You can find them on their website. These are the tenets that they have had since the very inception of the business, that they measure every single thing they do by. I'm just going to share a couple of them real quick with you. One is focus on the user and all else will follow. Another is the need for information crosses all borders. Another is you can make money without doing evil. So these are the tenets of one of the most successful businesses out there right now. And every product that Google has designed is intended to get the company one step closer to this mission. It drives every choice that they make. But what's really phenomenal about this is you look at it in Google, what they've done is they focused on the idea that information is power. And what they've done is they've made a message that centers around the belief that every human being has the right to access that power. So suddenly, they're actually taking a stand for equality and bridging disparity to champion human rights and dignity. And that's all from what was originally a search engine. Do you see how powerful that message is? And this is something that they use to inform every choice that they make. It's a universal message that they bring into their strategy, to their innovation, to their recruitment, their retention. It is the thing that aligns all efforts. And it's a compelling belief that people want to get behind. So with that, let's summarize. Shift number 1. It starts with you. Prioritize getting clear on the belief and purpose you and your business take a stand for. This is your number 1 leverage point. And we've already seen that in how studies show that the relationship between you as a supervisor and your employees is your very best asset. And the great part about this is while you may be feeling spread so very thin, what this really means is that you actually have to expend less effort rather than more because of the influence of your role. The difference is knowing how to intelligently and intentionally leverage that influence and turn it into culture that then carries its own momentum. And that's why we're here. So I just want to emphasize as we go to the next shift, the result of employee engagement means the reprieve you've been waiting for. Take that in for a second. And now we're going to move to shift number 2, which is make everything personal. So in shift number 1, you clarified the belief. Now let's make it irresistible. So you know that old adage of don't make it personal in business? It's not personal, it's business. Well, we want to blow that out of the water because that is the very thing that could be causing your team to suffer right now. In fact, it could be the weakest link in your team dynamic. And we're going to explore why this is by taking a lesson from some of the very best salespeople. People who are in sales to make a difference in the lives of others and are really good at doing it. So first rule of sales. The first rule of sales is know your customer, right? But here's the thing that the best salespeople know. Know your customer isn't just about, oh, how's the weather in Northern California? And, oh, what are you doing with your kids this weekend? It might start there. But what the best salespeople know is that people respond to products and services that help them align who they are with who they want to be. They're not buying your product. They're investing in a solution to a roadblock on the path to the identity that they want. The best salespeople, what they do is they make the product infinitely compelling to the individual by helping them see how it's the key to unlocking what they want to be and how they want to be seen in the world. whether it be a pair of shoes or a house. And what this requires, it requires that you know how the person wants to see themselves first. This is why a salesperson's greatest skill is their ability to ask amazing questions that get to the heart of a person, and then to listen with intent. So, the greatest driver of action is compelling meaning. And there's no meaning more compelling than identity. If you can speak to identity and demonstrate to people how what you have is going to help them achieve the identity that they want, that is the point where they go all in. And so, what I want you to do is, I want you to take this lesson and apply it to your business. I want you to make the belief irresistible by becoming the chief internal salesperson of your business. I want you to treat your employees like internal customers and your organization like the product. And the first rule of creating peak performers is to know your employees. Stephen Covey said in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the principles was seek first to understand. We want you to employ that principle everywhere with your people. Know your employees, know what they respond to, know what causes them to pull back, know why they're there and what they want. Make every interaction count by making it personal. Frame every acknowledgement, every piece of feedback, the deadlines you bring, every bit of development, the meetings that you are in with them, the emails that you send. Frame all of it from the place of knowing who they are. The more that you know your employees and garner their investment and develop trust with them in this process, the more you make an irresistible link between their identity and what your business is all about. When people can see a connection between who they are, what they do, and how that serves a larger purpose, it gives them a sense of significance. And when people feel significance, that is when you get their all in. Because like the salesperson, you will be getting the all-in investment of that individual. And here are some numbers that demonstrate how true this is. 67% of employees who feel their supervisors focus on their strengths and help leverage them in their work operate at their full capacity. Interesting side note, only 25% of employees actually agree that they have this kind of supervisor. Key information there. Employees who are uniquely thanked by their managers made 50% more fundraising calls than their coworkers in a study done by UPenn. Employees whose supervisors meet with them regularly are 3 times as likely to be peak performers. And finally, 75% of employees say they'll stay longer at a company and feel more invested in the results they're asked to produce when their feedback is sought out and used to address concerns and change. So some powerful data here about how making things personal and speaking to the individual employee through the interactions that you have with them can drive incredible results and growth. So to summarize, I want you to hear it from a winning CEO. This is Brent Ryan. He's the CEO of Ryan Incorporated, which is a leading global tax services firm. And so what he says is, here's a takeaway, and I want to share the most important thing that I've learned in this process, and that is, when you treat your people like they're your best clients, you win. When you let them drive, you win. And here's an interesting piece of information to demonstrate the results of having a CEO who has that kind of mindset. In the 21 years that Ryan Incorporated has existed, they have had 70 partners, and there is only 2 that have left for reasons other than retirement. That is the power of understanding why your organization exists and understanding your people and making an irresistible link between those 2 things. That is the payoff. And that, my friends, takes us to shift number 3. Choose from your bullseye every time. And I want to start this one off by sharing some fascinating information with you. So our brains are estimated to be processing information at 11 million bits per second. But even crazier than that is that it's estimated that our brains are exposed to over 200 billion bits per second. And in all that, the part we are estimated to actually be conscious of is 60 bits per second. So the key here is With all the information that we are taking in, there is only a minute part that we are actually aware of and conscious of moment by moment. And so, what we need to know about this is that your brain's focus literally frames your reality. In the massive amount of information that is there, there's only so much your brain can focus on, and it blocks out everything else. So, what that means is a key to success is to choose well our focus at any given moment and ensuring that it aligns with the results that we want. So imagine you made a choice that you wanted to start eating differently. And the thought in your mind that was driving that was, don't eat the cookie. What happens then? Well, suddenly, every time you tell yourself don't eat the cookie, what you're actually asking your brain to think of is eating the cookie. And now your focus is on cookies and you're visualizing cookies, and cookies are everywhere. The very thing that you're trying to avoid is the thing that you're constantly thinking of. So you may have been thinking all along that that thought was serving you in your attentions, but actually it's directing you towards the very thing that you're trying to avoid. This is why crowd out diets have been such a trend. This idea of, instead of focusing on what you don't want to eat, focus on the things that you do and just slowly increase them and crowd out the other thing. Focus on what you want. So the key is here to understand that where you focus on is where you will go. There's another phenomenon in whitewater rafting where when rafters focus on the thing that they're trying to avoid, whether it be a rock or a whirlpool, they actually get sucked right into it, which is why instructors always tell new rafters, focus on the place that we want to go, not on the thing that we're trying to avoid. Another default for us when we're framing what we focus on is the way that we've always done it. And I'm sure you've run into this at some point or another with your team. The place where people default to what feels familiar and resist change because it's asking them to do something in a new and different way. It's not what's familiar, and it's not how they've patterned themselves to do it. So the key again here is making sure that your focus in every moment aligns with the intended outcome that you are looking for. It's not enough to know your purpose and your belief. Belief that is not made relevant to this moment right now is useless. Choose to align your focus with your intention and recognize that belief and intention is sustained by making a practice of choosing from the intention in every moment. So we talked about Google, and you better believe that in every decision, big or small, Google is asking themselves, how can this choice help make information more universally accessible and useful now? What strategy will deliver that result in this situation? So again, constantly bringing that belief into the present, into the immediate moment, and using it to inform how we make this choice now. This is what ensures that continuity of efforts, making sure that they are all aimed at the intended target that we wanted to get at, and not something else that sidetracked us because we lost sight of what it is that we are here for. So let's look at this in action. David Cooperrider, who's an organizational consultant and one of the co-founders of a method called appreciative inquiry, tells a story about a client who came to him because they had a rise in sexual harassment cases. And so initially, they had taken an approach like most businesses would, where they went back, they bolstered the policies, and then they brought them to their employees to educate them further on what sexual harassment was and how to identify it. And so David Cooperrider realizes that while this was educating people on how to identify sexual harassment, it didn't do anything to promote an alternative culture. And so what he looked at was this idea of how to frame the solution to the problem by choosing the right question. And so instead of asking the question of how do we decrease sexual harassment incidents, what he did was he looked at the question of how do we create a model of high quality cross-gender relationships in the workplace. And so when he brought this to his client and they put it into practice, it revolutionized their work environment almost overnight. But even more amazing than that is that the company Avon got word of this and, having some similar issues, adopted the same methods. And by the next year, they were awarded the best workplace for women. So again, the key here is what you focus on is what you will get. This is what keeps belief alive continuously, so that again, the right beliefs are driving the right results continuously, so that you are getting what you need from your people with consistency. So we're going to layer one other piece on this, and that's the idea of reciprocity and the tool that it can be. So one of the key principles that Robert Cialdini talks about in his book Influence is the idea of reciprocity. And it's a simple idea, but it's this idea that when we show up with something for somebody else, the automatic response as human beings is to want to return that to somebody. When we show up and offer value to somebody, the automatic response is that that person wants to bring value back to us. And so the key to leveraging this is to understand that we attract behaviors in the workplace by living them. Reciprocity is the tool that demonstrates what we stand for in action. It allows it to be seen and demonstrated. It makes it explicit. It gives your employees a target to be able to aim towards. It brings clarity where there might have been confusion. It lets them see very clearly what the goal is. Reciprocity is the thing that causes employees to rise to the occasion because they want success too. Ultimately, they don't want to be failing. They want to feel good at the end of each day as well. So here's the key: demonstrate and then set expectations. It gives people both a target to be able to aim towards, and it evokes that sense of reciprocity where they want to give that back. And this might shock you, but here are the results of this kind of practice. Employees who agree that their managers support them in setting clear expectations and priorities for their work are over 9 times more productive. And employees who have supervisors that consistently hold them accountable are almost 5 times more productive than those who feel they have no or inconsistent accountability. So when you practice with consistency the behaviors that you want, and you bring expectation alongside that, that motivates people. They crave that kind of clarity, and they crave that kind of accountability because it helps align their efforts so that they can see the success that they want to bring to you and to your business. So in summary, we want to adopt the crowd out method of culture shift. So behaviors must match intention at all times, which means that every decision, strategy, and action must align with your true north. Inconsistency, it adds confusion and it frustrates your employees' desire to actually show up with reciprocity. So stepping in and demonstrating what the belief and the intention looks like in practice. So frame everything from your goals and the intention of your business. Everything will follow from there. Great, so let's just check in for a moment. So what we've looked at how culture always exists and the necessity for clarifying your belief to create an intentional rallying point for your team. We've looked at how to make that belief irresistible so that your employees invest their best efforts in your business and in delivering the results. And then we looked at how to renew that meaning on a daily basis so that the behaviors are continuously delivering those desired results. And throughout all that, we looked at how culture is contagious and how it patterns behaviors. But now what it's time to do is it's time to look at, what do you do when you hit the roadblock? What do you do when it all breaks down? What do you do when behaviors start entering the workplace that have the potential to completely derail everything that you've worked towards? Well, that's when it's time for shift number 4, which is how to use the secret weapon. So what we now know is when culture is perpetuating the wrong behaviors and the wrong patterns, that's when we start leading to exhaustion and to time wasted. That's where efforts feel constantly confused and inefficient. It's where people start feeling lost, disengaged, or discouraged. And it's also where you end up feeling entirely stuck in the weeds trying to find your way through. So what you need in these moments is a secret weapon that will disrupt and derail. So don't go running yet, because I'm sure there's a part of you that's like, Ben, I have had a lifetime supply of disruption and derailing. That's the very thing I'm trying to get away from. But here's the thing. That was disruption that you had no control over. That was disruption that others were bringing into the space. But what we're talking about here is disruption that is initiated by you. So if culture is behaviors that become well-worn patterns, then disruption is exactly what is needed to derail those patterns and behaviors and to get you back on track with your intended outcomes. So what we mean by that is the right kind of disruption. And we're going to hear about that straight from Dick Costolo, who was the CEO of Twitter from 2010 to 2015 and helped bring the company through some really big changes. And what he says is, make sure everybody understands what you understand. Anyone in the company can ask me anything. I like it when people challenge me. They start to understand that anyone in the company can have a question or debate. I encourage that from day one in the new hire orientation session. The most important thing in a growing organization is to get to the truth. The fastest way to get to the truth is discourse. So right here, we see Dick Costolo making a connection between truth-telling and the growth of an organization. And so your secret weapon is courageous conversations. Courageous conversations are your tool for creating that disruption that derails behaviors that you do not want and gets people back on track. And here's how this works. What courageous conversations provide is they provide transparency. The more information exchanged, the less room for people to fill in the blanks and to make up stories in their heads that don't serve the business or the results you're working to achieve. And the more access that everybody has to the real information, the information about available resources, about the obstacles to overcome, about the best practices, about what's happening and how that information can be utilized. So what that means is you have the real data. And you've hit these places before. You know those places where there's something going on but nobody's telling you. You know those places where there's information that you're missing, that people aren't bringing to you. And you know that bad feeling, that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're making a decision that you know is not fully informed. So courageous conversations are what give you the transparency so that you can make fully informed decisions. Fully informed decisions that connect, again, the real information to the intention of the organization, making sure there's a clear link between the two so that you can get quality results in the quickest amount of time because you're not stuck in the weeds of trying to figure out what's going on. So transparency. Transparency crushes misinformation and storytelling and makes clear the real data. Transparency also involves everybody. Everyone that's affected by the information is a part of the conversation. And with that, it builds trust because people have a better understanding of their colleagues, why their colleagues make the decisions that they do, and don't have to be making up stories in their heads about what's going on from their colleagues because they're hearing from them directly. So what that means is problems are solved faster with better solutions because you're working with the real data, not the superficial BS that masks what is really going on. So the key is using the other three shifts to create a foundation of trust so that when you get to those places where inevitably there will still be behaviors that don't match with what you're trying to accomplish, we can have honest and open conversations that allow those things to be seen in ways where people don't have a reason to fear, but instead want to bring that information forward so that a solution can be arrived at as quickly as possible and everybody can get back on course. So in summary, the thing you want to be focusing on here is creating a culture where skillful, open, honest, and transparent dialogue is engaged by all members of the team, and it's held as a non-negotiable. This is something that we do and we make a practice of, no matter what the perceived cost. And you will constantly renew the investment and the performance of your team. Any sort of misstep or distraction will be immediately course corrected. This is the change maker. This is the thing that will produce the breakthrough every time. So with that, we're coming into the home stretch with shift number 5. Shift number 5 is seek mentors. So I want to ask you one more question that's going to require another boldly honest answer from you. How often do you struggle with the very same things your people do? And in particular, is your intention derailed by the day-to-day, especially in these moments where you've been doing everything that you can to hold your business together? Well, if that's you, you're in good company, because 84% of CEOs surveyed credited mentors with helping them avoid costly mistakes and become more proficient in their roles faster. Even the very best CEOs out there seek out mentors for an outside perspective and to get somebody that can challenge them, hold their feet to the fire, and catch the blind spots that they wouldn't have seen themselves. And so, what does it offer? Well, it offers you new insights from somebody who's both an outsider, not mired in the weeds, and also somebody who's been doing this for years and can offer ideas and solutions you wouldn't have thought of. Two, it gives you somebody that you can test your ideas with before you dump all your resources in them to be able to find out, is this a viable option? And three, it gives you accountability. Somebody, again, who's going to hold your feet to the fire and make sure that you're seeing through the things that you've named as your intentions. And so what this does is it positions you to model the very change that you're inviting your team into, because you're going to need to be focusing on beliefs that match your results. Then you're going to need strategies and habits for yourself that align with those new beliefs of how you want to show up. Then you're going to need consistent action to see the results happen. And this is the hardest part. Again, it's like going to the gym. You can have a precise target and you can know exactly what to do. But change is not about information. It is about transformation. So get yourself a trainer to help you see it through and to implement the things that you want to take a stand for and that you know are going to position your people to deliver on results. This is the part where it's easy for people to fall short because our brain wants to slip back into its familiar patterns. Have that person there to help you see it through. Do not try to go at this alone and have it feel like this was another time waste for you because you were not able to see it through. Make sure that you have somebody who's going to keep your head in the game. And speaking of big names in the world of CEOs, even Mark Zuckerberg asks for help. Mark tells a story where he says, early on in our history, when things weren't going well, we had hit a tough patch and a lot of people wanted to buy Facebook. I went and I met with Steve Jobs. And then he goes on to tell the story about how Steve Jobs told him to go to a monastery in India that he had been to back when he was trying to get clarity for a decision he was making with Apple. But the point here is Mark Zuckerberg sought out the right people to help him through the transition. Another one of his mentors, Don Graham, who was the former CEO of Washington Post, said of Mark, people always ask, how does Mark have the wisdom of someone 20 years older? The answer is he sought out really good mentors early on. And so shift number 5, successful CEOs surround themselves with people who have the right knowledge, skills, and belief to help them get to the places where they want to go. Remember, you are your best asset for leveraging the full engagement of your people. Belief in you and your company and what you stand for is the number one relationship for engaging that all-in of your people. So you need to make sure that you're investing the time in the resources into that asset so it, meaning you, can be leveraged to your fullest capacity. You need and deserve the very same kind of support, encouragement, and challenging environment that your team needs from you. Give yourself that support and understand how to even better meet the needs of your team by being on the receiving end of a great mentor. And keep in mind that it feels amazing to receive what you give. I invested $15,000 in mentoring alone this year, and I'll tell you right now, it's amazing to be facilitated in the very same ways that I go out and facilitate others. So I want to end with a story, and it's a story that took place during the moon race. And there's a story about a news crew who was going around through NASA interviewing folks. And as they were walking down the hallway, they bumped into a janitor. And so they decided to interview him. And they walked up to him and they asked him, "What's your role here at NASA?" And he turned to them, looked straight into the camera and said, "My job is to put a man on the moon." That is the power of culture. Culture that permeates and infuses the entire business from CEO to folks on the front line. This is the kind of belief that creates compelling meaning and causes people to show up with the best that they've got and deliver on results that surpass expectation. So, follow the 5 shifts, embed them in your workplace, and this is the outcome that you will get. So we're back to our starting point. What I had promised you. I had promised a 5-step strategy that would help you annihilate cycles of miscommunication and confusion in your team so that you could fast track the results that you need. A process that would help you jumpstart the productivity that you want while massively decreasing your stress and that of your employees. The simple trick to retaining your peak performers and to create even more of them, even if they're on the verge of leaving. There's a process to make accountability and follow through the minimum standard for your employees and to actually raise the bar so that they're coming in full on energized and proactive in participating in the growth of your company. And finally, what I promised was to look at how to do all this without having to run around and put out fires, check in constantly on people to make sure that they're following through, or have the same conversations over and over again just to keep people on task. So these are the 5 shifts that will be your solution to solving each one of these issues and to transform the workspace that you are in right now. So just to recap on what you need to win at this new game that you're playing. You need to know your true north. You need to make everything personal. You need to choose from your bullseye every time. You need to use the secret weapon, which is courageous conversations. And finally, you want to seek mentors. These 5 shifts alone will enable you to create the kick-ass team that you've always wanted, that shows up all in and delivers on the goods in big ways. So now you have a choice. You can take the information I've given here and you can forget all about it. You can go back to that place of feeling absolutely stuck, of feeling mired in the excuses, of needing people to show up but having exhausted every resource that you have in trying to figure out how to make that happen, of feeling the anxiety of not knowing how you're going to make your business actually thrive when people are in this state. Or if you want to start living into that dream team, that team that is delivering the results every single time, and they're delivering it on time. And not only are they delivering, but they're doing it in a way where they feel amazing about what they're delivering, who they're delivering it with, so that you're able to walk into your office every day feeling amazing about the things that are being accomplished in this workspace that you've created. If that's what you want, here's what I have for you. I have set time aside in the next 48 hours to speak to you personally about how you can apply these ideas to your business starting today. Whatever your challenges are in reaching your team's peak performance, I want to jump in and help you find the solution that you need. I've been working with teams for years, been in the fire with teams. I've been in the fire with my own people. And these are the tools that have been forged in those places. And they're tools that we're excited to pass on to you. So what you could expect from this one-on-one session. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take about 60 minutes. And during that time, I'm going to work with you to create a step-by-step game plan to hit your engagement, your retention, your productivity goals this year, all while reducing burnout and creating a work environment that your people are excited to show up for and deliver. And the way that we're going to go about that, when you come on the call, we're going to get you clear on 3 things. We're going to get you clear, number 1, on where you are and where you want to be. Number 2, we're going to look at the root problems and the roadblocks preventing you from getting there. And then number 3 is we're going to identify what you need in order to get to where you want to go. The cost for this session? Absolutely free. Now that said, this isn't for just anybody. So I want to be clear who this is for. You must believe in what you do. You need to have some foundational belief in why your business exists and the value that it brings to the people that you serve through the product or the service that you offer. You must be willing to engage the same process that you invite your staff into. You must be willing to be a part of it. You cannot just pass it off to people. And you must take responsibility for your own success and be committed to doing the work that it takes to get there. If that's you, please book a session right now. I would be thrilled to speak with you. Now you may ask, Ben, why do you do this and why is it free? Well, here's the thing. I love helping folks who run businesses with a powerful mission, doing amazing work in the world, be even more effective in delivering their outcomes. It's the work that thrills me. This is what I take a stand for in the world. And here's the thing. we do know that you might need help in getting there. And if you do, and if I can help you, I'm going to let you know. And we'll look to see if there's a fit in the ways that I can support you. If not, no worries. You're still going to walk away with tremendous value, having clarified these 3 points that are going to set a trajectory for you on your next steps. And for me, I'm still going to be able to walk away feeling good about having supported the amazing work that you're doing. So folks, I want to just thank you for having jumped in on this presentation. I hope that you're taking away a tremendous amount of value from it. I hope you're feeling inspired about what you can bring back to your teams. Because for me, again, this is what I love. And to share it with you is the thing that allows me to walk away feeling amazing. So if you want to book a call with me, what you're going to do is just go to daringedge.com/schedule. What that'll do is that'll take you to an application page where you can schedule a time for your breakthrough session. And there's also going to be a few questions for you to answer. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to dive right in and maximize the time on our call, having some of this baseline information. And remember, I've blocked off this time just in the next 48 hours, so spaces are limited. You want to sign up now. And here's my final promise to you. My promise to you is that we will make this one of the best 60 minutes that you have ever spent on your business and on your team. Thanks again, y'all. Thanks for joining. Keep doing amazing work in the world, and we'll see you next time.